So maybe you've got the latest full-frame camera with advanced eye tracking and lenses that can achieve wafer-thin depth of field. Maybe you've got a medium format digital camera with a host of expensive lenses. Maybe you've got a Fujifilm X series camera, lightweight and easy to take with you. Maybe you've got a Leica camera that produces stunning images with those Leica colours. Maybe you've got a little Ricoh GR camera that fits in your pocket but has an APS-C size sensor and produces high quality shots. Maybe you shoot on film. Maybe you shoot on medium format film. If you're a photographer, the chances are that you have spent time and money in accumulating a fantastic camera system that produces high quality results. So why on earth would you ever choose to shoot on your phone? Well, it's certainly not because they're great cameras. They're not great cameras. They've got a tiny little sensor that makes these mushy images that they add a load of digital sharpening to sort of correct for that. They're not very pleasant to shoot with. The screen's difficult to see in bright light. You can't get a level shot with it very easily because there's no viewfinder, there's no tactile buttons. In short, phone cameras are rubbish. But it's their rubbishness that's one of their superpowers. Let me explain. So there are three great things about the camera in your phone. Firstly, you have it with you most of the time. Even if you have a tiny pocket-sized camera, you still have to have thought about taking it out with you. Your phone's one of those things you just have with you by default. Secondly, you don't look very conspicuous holding a phone. Well, not as much as you do a camera. People are really used to seeing people with their phones out, so you'll blend in more. And that will allow you to get images in situations where a camera may make you stand out more and may make people react differently to you. And thirdly, bear with me on this one, they're very limited cameras. And what I mean by that is that they're not versatile. They work okay in some situations, and in others they struggle. And when conditions are optimal for them, the quality is only passable, it's not exceptional. So why is that a good thing? Because by far the most critical factor in image quality isn't the camera, it's the photographer and the decisions that they make. And while having all those lenses and wide apertures, dynamic range, intelligent eye tracking, all that stuff is great, it does do two things. Firstly, it encourages you to fall back on those things when making your shot. Secondly, and this is especially relevant if you take multiple lenses and accessories out with you, it brings a lot of choice. And choice is the enemy of creativity. Working to limitations forces us to problem solve. It gives us parameters that our creativity has to live between. When you can't rely on your camera to produce beautiful looking images, you have to fall back on the most basic fundamentals of creating good photography: composition, lighting, colour and tone, storytelling, the decisive moment. In short, your skill and creativity in your ability to visualise an image. If your image quality is going to be passable at best, how do you make your shot stand out? Even if you can't bear to attempt any serious work with your phone camera when you could simply take out your Sony or your Canon or your Leica, you should still attempt to shoot on your phone, because it's a fantastic exercise in improving your photography. And there are lots of great photographers out there creating stunning work on their phones. And it's not about buying the latest iPhone. All those cameras are just incrementally different degrees of mediocre. But a mediocre camera doesn't necessarily mean a mediocre shot, because there are different kinds of photographs. Some rely on high quality equipment, like environmental portraits shot on a medium or a large format camera. Some rely on specialist equipment, such as difficult to capture exotic wildlife. But some types of shots work fine on something as simple as a phone. Something like high contrast light and shadow, for example. Take a look at these shots by Kathy Ryan from her series Office Romance. Kathy Ryan has been the director of photography for the New York Times Magazine for over 30 years. The New York Times building is situated on 8th Avenue on the west side of Midtown Manhattan. It was designed with white ceramic rods covering the exterior in order to control light and heat coming into the building. One day, Ryan noticed the amazing shadows being cast by these rods as sunlight streamed into a stairwell, so she took out her phone and made a picture. She shared the image to her Instagram feed, and this was the start of Ryan's love affair with the relationship between the New York Times building and the sunlight, a project that was eventually to turn into office romance. The images evoke an almost meditative sense of harmony and quietness that feels in stark juxtaposition to the realities of the fast-paced, high-pressure world of meetings and deadlines that occur in these offices. Some images are more figurative, some venture more into abstraction, but they're all held together by this recurring feeling of stillness and calm. You can almost hear them, the muffled sound of the city outside, the quiet hum of the air conditioner. They're largely in black and white, and any colour ones have a very minimal palette. Yet for me, they evoke a warmth, a sense of contemplation. And a phone is the perfect camera for a series like this. These are opportunistic photos, so something that you carry on you that requires minimal setup is perfect. The semi-abstract nature and high contrast look means that these images don't need to be made on a high-end camera system. There's no need for a shallow depth of field, for lenses that can resolve fine detail, for 14 stops of dynamic range, or perfectly rendered skin tones. These things don't matter here. What does matter is how carrying a phone with you makes you think about what images you can make with it. Working to these limitations forces you to think creatively. Taking all that choice away focuses your mind. I was particularly drawn to this shot, and I think this is a great example of how you can use a phone camera to make an amazing shot. This is an image of a £612 window being replaced, but it's almost balletic in its composition. The semi-silhouetted figures against this tapestry of rigid horizontal lines, the way all the people are working together, and that subtle reference to Joe Rosenthal's raising the flag on Iwo Jima creates an almost comedic contrast between that iconic war image and the mundanity of replacing an office window. This image is great, but it's great because Kathy Ryan knows how to frame a shot, understands light and contrast, and most critically, knows when to release the shutter, the decisive moment. These things are enough to make a great shot with a simple and fairly mediocre camera. So going out to take photos and only taking your phone camera can be a great exercise in your photographic discipline. When we're packing our photography bags, it's easy to worry about all the images that we might miss if we don't take this lens or that filter or that flash gun or that full frame body. But when we actually start to make images, it's easier to switch your mind into that kind of positive mindset, and the question becomes less, what can't we make without X, Y, and Z, and more, what images can we make if we only use our phone camera? And Kathy Ryan and many other photographers have shown us that it's possible to make outstanding, publishable work with your phone camera. So with that in mind, here are 13 practical tips on getting great shots out of your phone. 1. Before you do anything else, clean your lens. Just give it a wipe. Ideally with a lens cloth, but if you don't have one, just do it with your t-shirt. I wouldn't recommend doing that with your high-end expensive lenses, but phone lenses are generally pretty rugged. But I too often see those hazy, washed out phone photos because they've been taken through a lens with greasy fingerprints all over it. 2. Turn your screen brightness up and hold the phone with both hands. Treat it as much like a camera as you can. Be aware of where your lenses are located and keep your fingers out of the way, especially when using those wider focal lengths. I also recommend putting it in airplane mode to stop people calling you and interrupting you mid-shot. 3. Switch on and use the rule of thirds grid lines on your phone. And don't do it to use the rule of thirds, but because when you're not looking through a viewfinder but rather holding your phone screen out in front of you, it's very easy to misalign or to tilt your phone accidentally. Use those lines to get your horizontals and verticals nice and straight. So I'm not advocating that you should always be using the rule of thirds, but on the flip side, it's sometimes good to have a starting point to develop a composition from. It's kind of easier than starting with no guidance. It will just help you get into that mind space where you're analysing your frame from a compositional perspective. 4. Download Lightroom onto your phone and use it as your camera by tapping this little camera icon here. Put it into professional mode and it will give you loads more controls than your camera app on your phone. It will also allow you to shoot in RAW and stop that nasty automatic digital over-sharpening that so many phones like to bake into your images. The app is free to download and use. If you have a Creative Cloud subscription, you can sync your presets and your photo library, but you don't need a subscription to use it. Number 5. So while I just told you to download Lightroom onto your phone, that doesn't mean that you have to edit your photos on your phone. Of course, if you want to edit them on your phone, then please go ahead. But it's just that personally, I find the tiny screen and fiddly controls not really ideal. I prefer to concentrate on taking my shots at the time and then taking them home and editing them on my computer later. And if you're using Lightroom through a Creative Cloud subscription, those images will already be in your Lightroom catalogue when you boot up Lightroom on your computer. Although personally I like to use Lightroom Classic or Photoshop over Lightroom CC, post-processing the image is a fairly important part for me, so I prefer to have that little bit of extra control. But that's just how I shoot. There's no right or wrong way. Your style may suit editing as you go, whatever works for you, but I feel I can be a bit more objective about my images if I leave a time separation between taking them and editing them. Number 6. Look for strong lighting contrast. Phone sensors are tiny, and so giving it something that's easy for it to deal with, like strong lighting, is a good way to get great shots. Try exposing for the highlights and pulling down the exposure when you take the shot. This can look good when there's very hard light, very defined shadows. It's extra important to get the image as close to your final vision as possible in camera, as there's generally not as much latitude for pushing phone images in post. Look for patterns and shapes cast by hard sunlight. Look for silhouettes. Look for strong colours. Try shooting into the light. Number 7. Now, this may seem obvious to a lot of people, but remember to shoot horizontally as well as vertically. Remember to shoot in landscape mode as well as portrait. Also, you don't need to stick to the aspect ratio that your phone takes photos natively in, whether that's 16:9 or 2:3. You can try and shoot maybe square or 10:8, that's a particular favourite of mine, because it can change the balance of your shot, and sometimes it can make a shot that doesn't really work together very well. Number 8, go black and white. This may sound oversimplified and obvious, but choosing to shoot in black and white can help greatly with the phone images. Black and white is a lot more forgiving with low quality images. It can help eliminate those nasty digital colour renditions. Phones can also generally get quite good close-up shots, and when you turn a detail shot into black and white, it can help emphasise form and texture. But I'm not in any way saying you should always shoot in black and white. It's just one way to simplify your thinking process even more. Because with black and white, you're reducing your composition down even more to just its fundamental building blocks of dark and light. Number 9. Go abstract. Try thinking less about representing something figurative and try thinking about your frame as a way of balancing colour and shape and form. Now, phones are great for this, if for no other reason than you carry them around with you all the time, and abstract shots are everywhere. You might see an abstract shot on the bus to work, or while you're waiting in a dentist's waiting room, or going up a flight of stairs in a gallery or something. And it doesn't have to be fully abstract either. You can start to introduce this practice in your figurative work. And shooting abstract will help you learn to balance all the elements in your shot. It's a great learning process. Number 10. Take advantage of your phone's small size. You can flip your phone upside down and get your lens really close to surfaces and objects. You can shoot through small gaps where a bigger lens would struggle. Number 11. Try using filters that you already own. You just need to hold it over your phone lens. So you can use a polarizer to eliminate reflections or get deeper blues in the sky. A Pro Mist can help take away that digital look, especially with a phone. That's very useful. You could cut out some coloured gels, cut out a little square and stick it over your lens, and then use that as a black and white filter, maybe a red or a yellow. Number 12. Look for interesting things, interesting scenes. If you can't rely on your camera to make a nice image, you have to make the image something of interest. This could be something funny, it could be something weird, it could just be a scene where a particular colour has arisen as a theme or a juxtaposition between two elements. Use the photographic frame to alert people to those small, beautiful things that are too easily missed as we go about our busy lives. Finally, number 13, take your time. We're very conditioned to just sort of whip out our phones and take a quick snapshot. And if you're trying to capture that decisive moment and it's happening right now, then that may be the right approach. But if you're taking a portrait, or you're taking some architecture, or a landscape, or some detail shots, take your time to get it right. So a phone camera wouldn't be my camera of choice. For the type of photography that I personally like, it's not really versatile enough, but I do really enjoy the challenge of shooting with it. And if I'm honest, I've got a fair few shots from it that I'm really proud of. And there's one thing I'm sure any photographer will tell you, which is they'll have been told at some point, that's an amazing photograph, you must have a great camera. Which is kind of annoying because they'll have spent years honing their craft, and it's not meant in a bad way, so you don't want to get all defensive and correct them. So it's always rather satisfying to be able to say, thanks, but actually I just shot that on my phone. But the main reason that you should aspire to shoot good photos on your phone is because the best way to learn and to improve your photography is to take pictures. The more you do it, the better you will get. So turn those times when you're not going out with a specific intent to take photos into potential photography sessions. What images can you make while you're waiting for the bus? While you're taking your kid to school, hanging out the washing, waiting for a meeting to start? Condition your mind to see potential photos through the mundane, through the ordinary. It'll make you a better photographer the next time you pick up your camera. Or maybe even one of those shots you take on your phone will turn out to be your next masterpiece. I'll see you next time.